journals, and I'm getting a lot of good feedback, and a lot more people are paying attention and watching than I anticipated. So it's great if you're here and watching, and great to have you watching after the fact on the archive. Thanks for tuning in. Today I am going to be working a bit on validating data using external sources. Now, this isn't always a luxury that you'll have when you're doing data science, but it is a luxury that I have because the data that I'm working with is published by the FBI, and the FBI publishes some headline statistics and some media about it. So I can check my understanding of the data by seeing if I can closely recreate that data. So that's something that I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to just tweet now that the live stream is happening. And we will get started. I did some digging over the weekend, and I checked out some basic statistics from the FBI that I've noted here in my document. These are mostly have to do with counts, which is what I thought I could handle first. And then there is some rate statistics. And when I first checked what we had done previously, it became clear to me that I was overcounting crimes or undercounting population, but I think I'm pretty close on population, and it seems more likely that I'm missing counting crimes. So I'm gonna try to check that out right now, and make sure that the stream's high quality, and it's a little blurry to me right now. I don't know why it doesn't default though, but hopefully those of you who are tuning in, you can get it so that my screen looks pretty good. So I have these statistics, and I just picked a year, 2012. I'll probably try to do this for every year of data that I have, but that doesn't make for interesting analysis. So let's just start with 2012. I wrote down in my notebook here that the FBI said that there were 1,214,462 violent crimes. I don't know how the FBI translates the data elements into the term violent crimes. I don't have a field in my data called crime. I do have these categories, which the FBI says are included. Murder. I have a category called manslaughter. I don't know if it includes negligent and non-negligent data. I have a category called forcible rape, and I have a category called assault, but not aggravated assault. I'm not a domain expert in criminal justice, so I'm going to have to learn a little bit about the domain in order to be able to try to interpret these terms. My guess is that aggravated assault is all assaults that are not labeled as simple assault in the data. So I've pulled in what I think are the fields needed to recreate this number. And what I'm going to do is try to recreate that number in a number of ways. So first thing I'm going to do simply is by year we're going to create violent crime, which is going to equal plus manslaughter plus forcible rape plus total assaults minus simple assaults. Which for some reason is my query may not it in for some reason. Simple assault. So by trying to do this recreation, hoping that I can get, I know that what I've done is not going to wind up with exactly this number. What I'm hoping I can then work to is see whether this is an over or under count, over or under count, then try to narrow down so that I'm getting close to this number. And then I'll try to do the same thing for property crimes. Then I'll try to do the same thing for total arrests, and then I'll work on the rate statistics once I think I've got the counts correct. So this is really helping me really understand the definitions in the data, which is something that's going to be really crucial when I'm starting to do an analysis, building models. Then understanding the underlying measures is really important to making sure that the models are correct. Alright. So I tried to avoid having to sit and wait for queries, but it's somewhat inevitable and unavoidable. It doesn't make for the best, most interesting live streaming. I actually should probably, I always wind up turning month into an ordered factor after I pull in the data, and then I wind up also creating this year-month variable that allows me to plot the data. I probably should just store this variable table, because then I won't have to create it every time I extract the data. Because it actually is taking quite a bit of time to store it. I didn't. Alright, we're ready to roll. Actually need to sum of it, I guess. Or else I'm getting a big vector. Be summed. So we can see that 2012 I summed up to 841,549, which is well short of the total that's reported by the FBI. So the first thing I'm going to do is say my assumption about simple assault is correct. Nope. Simple assault definitely accounts for lots and lots of crimes and way more than the FBI reports. So we know that it's required to be in there. Let's look at so being 400,000 short tells me that missing either some rows or some column. I think we might missing. Tried to put a filter on to avoid agencies that were covered, but maybe in my query when I filtered, the filter didn't get applied correctly, or I was just not doing it correctly. So go ahead and see. And while that's happening, I'm going to read through my fields here. Clearance represents an arrest to the FBI. So this says does not mention that they have to be arrests, and clearances should be smaller than actuals, which are reported, confirmed, not unfounded events. So I guess got murder, got forcible, got gun, weapon, assault. Property crime is burglary, larceny, theft, and arson. Seems to cover the rest. Just see if I can just recreate this one, the total. So let me know whether it's this variable, this ACT prefix, that is what I should be looking at. Pause for a second and have a cup of tea here. This query finishes. Already I see some, if I speed up my database, I can be a little more efficient in my work, so I need to think about whether it's going to be worth doing. Indeed, in 2012, I have 12.8 million total arrests. I can get 12.8 out of the data. So, let's see if it really is just this. Not quite. So here I see close 12.2, 12.7 million, 500,000 off. I must be double counting. And here, since I know I'm already double counting, here I must be, since I'm still undercounting, must be missing a category. So I'll have to look into how they define that better. Just a bit. But let's just hone in on the double counting then. I think that has something to do with covering agencies covering each other. Now that can't be that they reported some 2012 crimes in 2013 or whatever. Could be that some 2011 crimes were reported in 2012, but that seems really. It could be that the FBI number is using a different time window than the number that I'm using. Let's see about property crime, because since I'm missing the I'm off on the violent crime, I'm too low, and I'm too high on the total. I should be too high on the property crime. Looks like those two numbers of the FBI's don't sum to the total arrests, excluding traffic violations. So there are categories that are not included in violent crime or property crime. So let's just look at the property crime part first. Then I'll go and try to look at the rates anyway and see if there's something I can do to see how far I'm off on the rates, whether I'm or under counting. And after I do that, try to play with some of the reporting flags to see if excluding or including some rows makes a difference. Larceny, all that. We'll have to see. I have arson in this data, and there is a separate data collection for arson, but I've never looked at it and I haven't brought it into my data yet. So bring in this query. That should tell us whether we're close. But one thing we can see is the rates are per 100,000. So that's good. Let's see if I can recreate this number. Now we summed up population of twelve. Alright, so now we have property crime. 8.9 million 2012. I have 8.8 million. So probably just missing the arsons. Don't know. I'll have to look up how many arsons the FBI reports separately, but it seems like that's probably what I'm missing. So, alright. I'm not as worried now about the missing rows with the violent crime. It's like I'm most likely missing a whole category. So let's go back to the drawing board. I'm gonna go with this concept of the different categories of rape seems. Let's see how these components are related. Total rape, forcible rape, attempted rape. Somehow they are related to each other, and we need to figure out how they break out into being components of each other so I can figure out which ones to include. So alright, let's say if this doesn't clear it up, then we're going to be having to break out the assault category more specifically, I think. Yeah, I'm really bad at writing SQL queries, which is something I need to get more efficient at. Alright, well, this query runs. Cup of tea and wait to look at how these three different counts of the crime of rape are counted so that I can see if they are the cause of my undercounting. Alright, come on, sequel. Let's go. Interesting. This is broken out. Attempted rape plus forced rape does not equal total. Okay, so total enforceable rape. Total rape plus force equals statutory rape, essentially, is the crime that's left over. I wonder if attempted rape seems like a violent crime, so let's see if we add that. We get closer to the number that the FBI reports. Yeah, it doesn't really make a dent. It's only 1,000. So we got to break out assault then. That's really going to be the next category to try to figure out what counts as aggravated assault the data. And again, the FBI is reporting about this data, so think that it should be possible. Indeed, likely that we can recreate their numbers using some of the definitions in this data. I already have assault total. Let's say guns. Other weapons. And simple. So total assault we have this variable, gun assault, knife assault, see how these break down. And I should add simple. I can see if some of the crimes we're missing are caught up in simple, which is going to be hard because then we can't disaggregate them. without going to a different data set, which I don't want to do. Alright, we're disaggregating this variable. So we'll just pick 37097 minus 2925. Two 0252. So we have 822,685 assaults that are not simple. $59,000 are unaccounted for. They're in the total category, but they're not in any subcategories. So we have total, gun, knife, other weapon, assault. So we, by taking total minus simple, we're actually taking the largest possible number to take out of this. We just added up the other categories. That would be less. So we're being as liberal as we can with the assault definition, and we're still not getting to the FBI total. We're too low. Because if I do this, 2012, well shy of the 2 million violent crimes being reported. But we are real close to the actually, we might be short then too. Oh, we're a little high on the total arrests, which is really strange to me. So what I'm seeing is that I have a lot more work to do in understanding the definitions of these columns, because I should be able to create these figures reasonably well, not getting very close there, except with property crime, where it seems like FBI's data and my data pretty. Need to pull in a couple more variables. Just for kicks and giggles, and luckily I have the RAM to spare to pull this in. I think I'm gonna check out. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna stick with my strategy of total assault minus simple assault. But now instead of using actnum, I'm gonna use the clearance. And clearance really represents arrests, but maybe that's what the FBI is reporting. So I'm gonna try to pull in clearance numbers for the categories of crime that are violent. And I'm gonna see if doing those I get closer. Because the thing about clearances is that they can be on a different time scale. You can record in July a clearance for a crime that happened in February of the previous year. So they are not lined up as closely with the month, and I doubt that that slippage accounts for 400,000, nearly 30% of the total count, but I need to check that out and make sure that that's not the case. So query runs, I'll update this transformation clearances instead. And if that doesn't work, then I'll try to use the strategy that I used here where I looked at actual minus unfounded. And if actual minus unfounded for each of these is what I want, then I know that some reason actual is, they're really talking about 1.2 million arrests and not 1.2 million crimes. Yeah, I really need to consider updating my database, although usually once you kind of have a better understanding of the data, I won't need to be querying it quite so often. But yeah, clearances is way lower than the total. So now we're left with trying to do this, but that for property crime we hit the nail on the head by using the actuals. So what I have to think is somewhere I'm missing something. Guessing it's in the aggravated assault category. I'll just have to read up the definitions for that better. But I'm going to go ahead and try this actual minus unfounded strategy just to rule it out. Doesn't seem to make sense, but let's just look at the relationship between these three. So it looks like about 1% of reports are unfounded. These do not sum to each other at all. So they're not related. They're different. I already knew clearances and actual were different, but unfounded is different as well. So since I'm underreporting on the violent crime, then my strategy of actual minus unfounded is not going to work, because it's just going to reduce the number. So I have to figure out a little better how this idea of violent crime is defined. But I'm actually feeling pretty good about property crime. So since I think I have the counts right on property crime, let's see if I can get the rates correct. Is not easy, and will help me see if there's other issues with the data. So yeah, we have everything I need here. This query. Then to get the I'll go burglary, city, goal, population. Call this object table data. Great, now I can do some basic calculations. Say pop 100k. Now we can easily see query divided by pop 100k. Way too high. too high. 90.7. Way too. Population numbers are about right. US has about 300 million people per 100K. Said the total property 8,075,000. So let's see, 2017 plus 603,547 8 million. It's about right. Per 1,000. These are in order of too high. Great. So now we know. Let's see. 12. It's not time being sorry years. Thought that might be the case. This might be the arrest rate. It says arrest rate. So I need to always be careful. Arrest or reported crime rate. That's a definitional thing that I need to be aware of, because that could give me some problems. So this is the total number of crimes, but it's the arrest rate. Let's look at that. Another query. Scroll up here. I have a list of tables so I can get the names of the columns correct as I extract them. So luckily I just need larceny. Da-da. Let's try it. Clearances instead of actuals. Alright. Then we'll check out, see if the arrest rate data for each of these categories, individual categories, is more accurate. I think robbery might be included in the violent crime, and I might have just left it. It's not included in property crime. So that's a check out. Alright, now we're cooking. Alright, let's just make a note up here. Robbery. Okay. Alright, now I'm getting close to the FBI. So they said it was 90.7 in 2012. So in 2012 we had 206 divided by 78. So like I thought, I'd be off. Let's look at larceny. 23262 divided by 37778. So I'm undercounting the rate a little bit. Let's look at vehicle. Counting that one a little bit. So in the ballpark, but not dead on, and that means that probably now I have to get a little more attentive to the rows. But at least for property crime, I know I've got the right components, and I know that these are for arrests. Which is really helpful. Now I can fine-tune down, do some reading about, does the FBI exclude certain categories of jurisdictions, etc., etc. So now let's return to our difficulty with violent crime. So I know this unfounded thing was dumb, and did any. Don't really care. Actual number of robberies total. Just throw that in there. Document in a second. This works out, I get in the ballpark without filtering any rows. Then the next step will be to use one of these figures and try to figure out how many rows are included in data. So, that's something to keep an eye on. What are the exclusion rules that the FBI uses for publishing statistics? I mean, given how pretty close I was on property crime, there can't be that many exclusion rules. Which would make sense. Honestly, the data is actually pretty clear. So in 2012 now, we're up to 11 million, 1.19 million So let's see, 2162 minus this, missing 14,920. Does that include robbery? So robbery is really what did it. That's good to know. So let's play with some rates. So here again, let's make something. Just gonna create categories. Create the population. You. So weird. Okay. So let's look at some stuff. 2012 should see 14,79590 divided by 377,997, 4.8. So we're high on the homicide and manslaughter. Really high on rape. Oh, again, it's arrests versus clearance. Arrests are clearances, so we actually need to calculate the rates. Gotta remember that. It's gonna be a key distinction. What's this? Salt. I think what I'm going to do is probably pull in a bigger chunk of the data all at once. I've been doing this querying strategy to save on RAM. I look like I actually have quite a bit of RAM to spare, and I probably can pull in a lot more columns of the data so I don't have to keep going back and forth with the slow SQL. Alright, so in 2012, we go 83 plus 4, 8757 divided by friend 777.75. So now we're undercounting the FBI counts. That one. For rape, we are at 27. So there's a big overcount. 7. Kind of close, but not. Salt. 227. Pretty close. It's entertaining. Yeah, the murder non-negligent manslaughter arrest rate seems too low. Or why? Rape is like double too high. That's really confusing. Oh, unless the FBI thinks only women can be victims and then divide the population in half. I need to read up on this one. This one is pretty far off. And robbery, it's also pretty low. But I've already gained a lot of good information. 66 point. Let's see. Let's see if we got that. 8 2 4 is 27. Divide. Arrest rate of 166 per 100,000 inhabitants for violent crime. So they're just adding these rates separately. I get 2.75 plus 9 plus 20 plus 1.6. So I got 150.26. I'm close. So I'm wondering what they're excluding and what they're including. So that's going to be my task for today, is probably to look up what's being excluded and what's being included in this calculation. Because if I can't validate or recreate these numbers, then I can't demonstrate that I have any mastery of this data, and I need to be able to demonstrate that to myself and to others who are going to be looking at my work and using my work, that I actually know how these fields are related, and I actually understand how these measures are calculated, and that'll help inform my modeling strategy when I come to make some questions about statistical models or aggregation of data and reorganization. So I think that's probably a pretty good strategy to consider. I'm going to take a break on the live stream now, clear my head a little bit, and come back and live stream a little bit more later. Hopefully armed with a little more information, and after I've done some research on how the FBI calculates these numbers, so we can really dig in and recreate them. So take a break for now, and we'll be back with part 2 later on today. Thanks.